Okay, today we are going to be talking about why some countries are poor and why some are rich, and what defines the first world and the third world, because I'm sure you hear that term being thrown around a lot. So, um, let's get on with it. Now, countries in Africa aren't naturally poor because they're less capable than Europe. There are many factors, and it can be as natural as climate. Now, a lot of these countries are poor because they happen to be on arid land, which means the crops don't grow. And if the people aren't fed, they don't have energy to produce industry, which will produce more industry. For example, oil in itself creates industry as petroleum. As from petroleum, you can get gas and plastic, and there's a whole lot of range of gas and plastic. Also, the real estate from these drilling companies, property rights benefit for factories, plus the storage and workspace. It's so broad that even cleaners benefit from the oil industry because you're going to need people to clean up these rigs. So businesses, CEOs, receptionists, engineers, all fit into this one business because it has one resource. So all you really need for industry to launch, it's just to have one industry overall, and by having one industry it creates thousands of different industry. So like I said, with oil, people drill the oil. You're going to need drillers, you're going to need engineers, you're going to need the business people to run it. You're going to need cleaners to clean the place. You're going to need receptionists to deal with all the office work. So see how resources play a huge part in development. But also, in order for people to have industry, they're going to need food, they're going to need energy. Just you go one day without food and see how drained you become. That is the third world every single day, and it's simply because of the land. It's too hot, it's too dry, the crops won't grow, or there's a natural disaster or whatnot and it destroys all the crops and the people are starving, and therefore they don't have the energy to innovate. I'm pretty sure the exact same was happening in Europe when the famine was happening, and the Black Plague and all that sort of stuff. So, and obviously, because of the climate, these places have malaria mosquitoes, which spread malaria and give people disease, and people can't work if they have diseases, you know. Up in Europe, we're very cold, we're a very cold climate, so we don't have those type of bugs with viruses. We don't have that in our wildlife, and it's just because we managed to benefit strategically, and it was just out of pure luck, not because we're better than the Africans. So, and also, fair enough, you did have the Black Plague in Europe, and you could say, oh well, we managed to stamp out the Black Plague. Why didn't Africa not stamp out malaria? Because the Black Plague didn't go because people found a cure for it. It went away because it killed off so much people, and it killed off all the people who had the weakest genes, and it meant the people who had the strongest immune systems were able to survive and could tolerate it. A bit like with smallpox and the Native Americans, so no Europeans didn't come up for a cure for Black Plague. So, and so obviously if you're ill, you're tired, you're weak, you're gonna die, and obviously if there's less people, there's gonna be less people paying taxes. It means the services the government provide are gonna be shit because the government rely on tax. And then you say, oh, but the third world has a higher population than the first world. True. This is because they can't afford condoms or abortion and all that sort of stuff. And these people need to have kids to support them when they get older. Like, having kids is a form of survival. Plus, in times of war, people people's reproductive clocks and their biological clocks speed up even more because there's stress around them, so they have the urge to, sort of, the women anyway, have that urge to reproduce, to want to have sex more so they could prolong the survival of their genes in such a harsh environment, because they can die at any time. Now, I don't think that's a good idea, but that's just women's biology. I can't control that, so I don't think it's good to be having kids when you're in a war zone, but that's women biology. I can't control that, so and obviously when there's war, all the money goes into fighting rebels, and it goes into paying for guns and bullets, and obviously Western spectators are watching this and they're playing off with the arms deal and the industrialized military complex. So, and obviously the West trick these nations into debt by purposely giving them bad economic advice so they can be tricked into debt. Like I said, white supremacy still exists. The white world order still exists. It just exists under the form of globalism. It's just more sneaky. It's just more deceitful. It's not as straight up in your face as it likes before. But the West still want to be the king, and the West still want to control the world. So, and they still want to colonize. And why do you think when Gaddafi and Saddam invented the idea of the golden dinar, they were assassinated immediately because the US Federal Reserve doesn't have any gold, doesn't have gold, so that one, by dumping the dollar and embracing gold, would have shifted the multilateral order to favour Africa instead of the West, and that's why Gaddafi was taken out, that's why Saddam was taken out. The West is still exploiting the third world, so yeah. It's the white globalists, and what's it called? And obviously these governments are in a war. They want to do anything to win. So when the Oxfam does come in to help these people, like these warlords, these dictators, they're going to use up all the money anyway. They're going to use up all the money to help with their war efforts because they don't want to die. So they're going to make all the charity spending all about them, so just common sense. So you would want to protect yourself over other people if you were leading that country. So and like I said with South Africa, with the diamonds and all that sort of stuff, and so yeah, and countries could also be haunted by their past, the bad economic management, and getting tricked through debt. But I don't believe Europe is better and Africa's inferior. I've already done a video on IQ. A lot of people lazily answer this question with, oh, it's to do with IQ, but watch my video on IQ, and you will know that's not the reason. I believe humans everywhere have potential. We could provide services. You are at least beneficial to someone in some way. Every human being is beneficial to someone in some way. So we're all beneficial to someone, and we all do have economic value to us. So yeah. So like I said, and obviously this wasn't always the case. There was times where the Ottoman Empire, the Abbasid Caliphate, the Persian Empire, ancient Egypt, the Indus Valley. I know this is all in the past, but the idea that the white man has always created everything and has made all the inventions, and all the non-Europeans, oh, they've been so poor, oh God, it's because we're better than them. It's like, you've had empires outside of Europe that at the time made Europe look like a backwater shithole. So yeah, and if the white race was so superior, the white race themselves have been conquered by the Persians, they've been conquered by the Arabs, the Mongols, you name it. So it's not this case of, oh, we're smarter, we're superior. No, you just got luck out of resources. And like I said, it's all to do with climate. If there's no resources in that piece of land, but then people say, oh well, Israel is in the middle of a desert and it outperforms its fellow Arab neighbours. That's because Israel relies heavily on US taxpayers and Goyim taxpayers from all over the world. So, you want to complain about migrants taking your taxes? Why don't you complain about Israel? So, however, I think we should cut all foreign aid, because I think foreign aid gets turned into military aid. I think these countries should be left to their own devices and should try to help themselves, because if you're a farmer in Africa and then the UN comes and starts giving people free food, then what's the point in becoming a farmer? So, yeah, and it's all the liberal plantation. The white man, like, to my non-white brothers there, you have to become self-empowered, you have to become strong, innovative, because the white man will only have pity for you and sympathy for you when they know they have complete power and control over you. It's only when they have complete power, control, and they know they can take you, then they'll start to show a bit of pity and sympathy. Do you honestly want to be that? Don't be in the liberal plantation. It's a form of control. So yeah, why do you think they don't like Iran? Because Iran's a non-white country that is conservative, empowered, you could sort of call it ethno-nationalist. That's why they hate Iran, but they'll give sympathy to the other Muslim countries because they're poor and they know they can bomb the shit out of them, so they feel a bit sorry for them because they know they're more powerful than them. These people can only have pity for you if they know in their heads they can put themselves above you first. So that's why I say to all the brothers out there, work on your own socio and economic development. You can't, because the guilt is breadcrumbs. Welfare is breadcrumbs. It will help you in the long run. So yeah. And people say, oh well, South Africa, us whites came, South Africa was nothing before we came. Then you could say, well, many of the Greeks stole their ideas from the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were black, so any civilization copies ideas from other civilizations. We are